an associate professor in the MFA musical theater program at San Diego State University. And we also have a BA in performance with an emphasis in acting and musical theater. So last year we put all of our undergrad auditions all online. So we don't do any in-person auditions but it's a BA program, so it's not a BFA program. And for our MFA program, we have a whole different thing, but we're not recruiting for that this year. So I'm here to listen and just to offer any thoughts and advice that might come along. So happy to see so many familiar faces and SDSU alums, and also new faces.
Go Aztecs. Here we go. B. Dye, who also put a question in the chat. Can you introduce yourself for us?
I sure can, if you keep.
Oh, hold on one second. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you real quick. That might have been on my end. Okay, for some reason the unmute function isn't working, but we'll come back to, oh, there.
Can you hear me?
There you are, yay!
Hi there, folks. My name is Billy Dye. I teach at a performing arts high school in Richmond, Virginia. I'm actively just seeking some opportunities for my kids to talk to schools. I teach at a Center for the Arts in Henrico County, Virginia, and I recently was introduced to the organization and was absolutely amazed at what you're doing. So looking forward to learning more about you. And yes, Keith, this is Billy Dye from Richmond, Virginia.
I love it, yes. Professor Hunt, who I'm gonna call you that for the first time. Can you introduce yourself?
So I'm Devon Hunt. I am an assistant professor of theater at Oklahoma State University. And I am also the future director of musical theater. We're in the process of launching a musical theater degree, and they hired me to run that. So also SDSU alum. So yeah, like I'm fresh out of grad school, so like I'm trying to figure this out. So I'm also like looking for what those of you who are experienced are doing.
I love it so much. I'm so happy for you. Okay, so Molly sent me some of the really great questions to get things started. So the first question is, are any schools, any of you all, starting a scholarship or a fund specifically for students of color? So just to start things off with that. And if anybody, I guess the easiest way to do it is actually the hand raise function within Zoom. That way I can make sure that we get to people who have things to say. Amy, let's go ahead and start with you.
Hi, it's not, our scholarship is not program specific, but it's college-wide specific, and we have a Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion that operates out of our provost office. And so it's a talent and need-based scholarship. And we also have, just in the last 2 years, created a rating system, which is working really well to help diversify our student population. And that, for instance, like there's a scale of points that we issue to all students who are applying for scholarships in general. And that has been working really well the last 2 years, like I said, in terms of opening up our numbers in terms of diversifying the program as well as the college. So.
Great. And Michael, let's go to you real quick.
Yeah, Tulane's had diversity scholarships open for years, but now in theater and music, they've really opened it up, especially for Louisiana BIPOC students. So that's where we're at, but that's been happening for the past few years.
Great. Yeah, Molly.
Oh, hi. I'm taking a break. I'm in the midst of writing a peer eval. Hi, everybody. So yeah, you're talking about recruiting, and actually we're doing something at Ball State. We just started. It's a 6-action plan. One component of it is there's a fund We're a fund that's earmarked for students of color. And that's, we say it's not specifically for students of color.
I was gonna say, how can I say it's for students
We
of
can't,
color?
right. It's not specifically for students of color because it's also for economic, it's for underserved, economically disadvantaged. Yeah, exactly. So it's not necessarily that about students of color, but it is geared toward bringing in students of color. And something else we're also doing is we just started an alumni association. We have alumni ambassadors that are, they're not necessarily recruiting students for Ball State, but they're going to coach and mentor students, particularly the same thing, students of color or disadvantaged students, because so many kids have the wherewithal and the means to go to these audition factories, these coaching. And what we're doing is we're enlisting these people they're all alumni of Ball State, to coach, not just for Ball State, but just to coach them, to give them a leg up in the audition process for schools. So yeah, that's a couple of the things we're doing. Hi, everybody.
That's great. Thank you. And Stacy, did you have something as well?
I was going to say there are scholarships and funds that are in the works, and there are some already that are university-wide, but departmentally specific, we're working on trying to provide those. Probably will not be in place for this next, in a group of incoming students, but it is in the works. So
That's great. Any other comments as to that, scholarship funds or a special fund for students of color or coming from economic disadvantages, especially during this time with the pandemic? Okay, well, let's move on to another question. Molly, I saw your other question in here, and I am very curious about this. Can anyone speak to what is totally lost in a virtual audition? So when you finally meet students face to face, were there any surprises maybe that weren't there in that virtual audition? Does anybody have anything to say on that?
has anyone actually done a virtual audition yet?
For production, but not.
Yeah, but since Stephen said they were doing all virtual auditions, I thought, well, maybe he would know.
Well,
So we finished our recruiting last year virtually. We were mostly through it, but a last chunk of students we saw virtually. So we have a handful of students that are now current students that we met virtually. And I would say for the most part, there haven't been any total surprises where what we experience virtually is so different than what we're experiencing in person. I think maybe we have a couple of students where the safety of being able to audition from their own bedroom maybe didn't allow us to see how they actually handled nerves and how they handled their anxiety and how they handled actually having to perform in front of other people. So some of them, and again, not that would be a reason that they wouldn't have been accepted, but you see an increase of that in their starting out versus what we saw virtually. But otherwise, for the most part, all those students that were accepted that way or that we met that way and were accepted that way, there hasn't been any, glaring issue with what we experienced. But we also, we interview all of our applicants. So they do an audition for us and then we have a good 5 to 10 minute, sometimes longer interview with them. So, that allowed us to get to know them better because we're not always making choices just on that particular audition. So that also helped, I think.
Yeah, in terms of what we do with our undergrad program, with our BA, is everything is done as a self-tape. So we started doing that even before the pandemic. And we have they have two tracks. If they are fantastic actors but are really not great singers, we send them a letter and say you're accepted into the program, but just know that when you come here, you probably won't be competitive with the other students that are coming in the musical theater track, because again, it's a BA in acting and musical theater. So there's and the musical theater track is a bunch of electives that you can take in the undergrad program to sort of create your own BA in musical theater. But what's interesting this year is that we sent that letter to one student, and then that student came in and they auditioned for the fall, and we were like, where did she come from? Her self-tape was not great, but her audition for the fall musical was phenomenal. And so it was like, that's sort of the risk you take, is if someone has a bad self-tape and you don't get a chance to have a callback or something like that, because we have a large number. We're a fully impacted program. So, I mean, we have a large number of applicants every year for the undergrad program, but that was sort of a nice surprise. And so we've actively reached out to the student and said, I know this is the letter you received. However, we'd like you to, we'd like you to participate in the undergrad musical theater program.
Yeah, that's a fun story. I'm sure that was an interesting time. How many just by a show of hands, how many people here do pre-screens, just so that we can be kind of on the same page? Okay, so kind of some do and some don't. Okay, great. Stacy, did you have something?
Well, yeah, and this goes a bit to pre-screen. I think there's a difference in because some schools, I think, are just asking for a video. So I think there's a difference in sending in a video and that being your audition, and then having a virtual interaction, which is what we do have a pre-screen where, we're doing part of the common pre-screen where people send in their videos like normal. And then for our actual auditions, our on-campus auditions, we're going through accepted and we're doing the whole audition room situation where we still will have the interaction that they have to do their own, they have to have their music with them. So that has to be a recorded piano tracks, because we ask for 2 contrasting. And then that way we can still have that interaction. We can still see how they take direction. We can still ask them questions, and I know it's not the same. And then and maybe Jacob and any other dance people can speak to this as well. We're still trying to figure out, because our auditions are in January, so we have a little time, but we're still trying to figure out how we're going to configure the dance portion, because I still want to have that interaction and see how they take notes and criticism and things like that. But I think we're going to have the interactive part of it, and then they'll have the opportunity to record the 2 combos that they learn. And then, our auditions are on a Saturday, and then they would have, I don't know, maybe 48 hours, I don't know how long we're going to give them, but that they do have a bit of an advantage that way. And then they can also have the track. And we also have to keep in mind that some people may not have access to a dance studio. So just trying to stay flexible with, and some people don't have a ring light, and some people, don't know how to record themselves and self-tape. And that's where I think sometimes you find, you can still find a diamond in the rough that way. And they haven't been coached necessarily. And that's something that we as a program, as an organization, talk a lot about, are these people who coach these prospective students. And I think that coaches can be great as long as they're not taking advantage of people. And, there are all types of scenarios out there. But anyway, that was kind of a tangent. Jacob, do you know how you're going to run your dance portion?
I think I do, but we're doing a little bit like sort of the paper mill common app that went where they will, and sorry, I lost the train of thought. There's going to be a video of a combination in different sort of levels that's on the website, and the student can pick which level they feel like they are at.
Right.
And would tape themselves doing that. And I guess we're just going to look at it. I love the idea that you have about having the live and maybe doing a class and then they have 48 hours to like record it and send it to you.
Or even if they record the paper, because we're doing the Common App too. So maybe even if we still haven't or maybe I teach that combo from the Common App and then give them a little heads up. And I don't know, that's what I'm just wondering. So.
Yeah. Paper Mill decided not to do the dance portion this year, I think, if I'm correct. So it seemed like too much. So we're just going to try to do it ourselves. But I guess I'm going to, I don't know, be very, maybe have to like look at them a little closer, their videos that they send in to like sort of kind of find that, sift through everything to kind of see like exactly what they're capable of. I don't know.
So Ted, I'm assuming that you're getting asked all kinds of questions, especially when it comes to things like this.
Tons of them. I don't advertise this stuff. I was on Broadway myself this past couple of years, but I do this stuff, and I also teach at a couple of different high schools. Duke Ellington, I just started doing some stuff in DC, and this school in Atlanta. So I've helped them migrate into virtual, the classes, and so obviously the audition stuff comes up. I mean, a lot of the schools already had been doing pre-screens via video auditions, just no interviews, just the auditions. But, I guess if you have high volumes, I guess it's the only way to see a lot of kids. But personally, I think it takes humanity out of it. But and having gone through a lot, I went through what was, back in my day, it was called the League of Professional Training Schools. I was CMU and all that stuff, but which doesn't exist. And they were all live. Of course, now technology is different, but tons of questions. And that's what I asked the question about accepted. I've not heard of Slate. My job is to try to just inform these schools and these children as to how to approach all of you and your programs to be viable. I'm sure you all would agree, as long as you can hear them and see them, you're looking for their talent. You're not looking for production quality of their tapes. Because I'm in New York here, and there's a lot of organizations that responding to what you said earlier, Stacy. I find it immoral, but in a way, what they do, they might help some kids, but their main goal is to make money, not to help the kids, and I'm against that. But so I'm trying to just provide honest information. And again, there's some of the questions, some of the restrictions and the articulation of the directions can be very tricky. And I do this professionally at very high levels, take people and stuff. And I look at it and go, what do they mean by that? And I know you're in a hard place. And how do you make everybody conform to things that make your job possible? But it gets tricky. The clearer that can be, and the less, because I wonder how much, the time limits, there's certain just physical restrictions and things that goes into play. Because again, like I said, I do this at a very high level professionally, and I look at that stuff sometimes and I go, okay, why are they asking? What does that mean? Or that could mean this, or that could mean this. And so the specificity of that is so important from y'all to guide these. And I'm like I said, a professional level, I feel bad for the kids that aren't. When I came up, I was from Pittsburgh, a high school, 1 to 10 kids, with 12 people in the house and 1 piano. I didn't know anything. I didn't have coaches. I just walked into a room and did what I love to do. So I know there's a lot of these kids that have these very high-powered coaching systems that know, have these connections to these acceptance programs. But I feel bad for the poor kids that are just talented kids in their town that want to perform. And how do you give them a leg up? I don't know. I've started to talk so much.
We say this all the time, that thank goodness, we are went to school and we did, and that we all have jobs, because I feel like I would never get in anywhere now. It's just such, of course they didn't have these programs when I was going to undergrad.
The fact that you're even doing this, by the way, I think is magnificent. It's really magnificent. I wish, so my.
Oh, well, thank you. And, we're here to answer these types of questions and be a resource for, people who are coaching these prospective students. And, you know, I speak to high school counselors who have no idea what we do that call me and are like, what the hell are you talking? You know, what is this? What's, and so I feel like we have an obligation to help people. And I personally think that we're going to be I know we at the university are going to be very flexible. If people don't get their pre-screens exactly right, or like I said, if they're lighting, again, we're looking for the talent. That's what I'm looking for. So if people don't know how to self-tape, I don't care. Okay, I'll shut up. Somebody else talk.
Well, but that being said, Stacy, so if what we're looking for is the talent, what resources can we be putting out there to say, this is what we expect from a pre-screen, like put it against a blank wall or something like that. Like, what can we tell students in order for them to be the most successful that they can be? Does anybody have any ideas on that? Yeah, Ted.
I have a question just because I do this. Like I said, I do it for high schools and I do it for individuals. Something that I don't know, I didn't pre-think this, it just occurred to me when you were speaking. It may be practical, it may not. Two things occur to me. Would it be possible to have an example somewhere online of just something that says, and it doesn't even necessarily be like a full song or something, of what, like some guidance as to what a good shot is, what the lighting is, what the framing is, rather than these kids guessing, if they can actually see it. See it and hear it, to say I teach a class on how to create your own, and I make the kids at the high school, the whole high school, not just the arts program, have a professional workspace in their house because it's virtual, so that, and it applies to this obviously, but how to just set up what's not a non-distracting background, this testing the sound, just simple, not professional, simple so that they can be seen and they can be heard. So just simple, like a simple guideline. And there are a lot of these schools, a lot of you do have that, but it's text, it's written out. And I would think either some kind of a visual, whether it be photographic or even a short little video that might just, even somebody talking someone through it. I'm talking simple, like 30 seconds. This, just in terms of framing, lighting, sound, just the basic elements might be really useful to some of these people and help them, you know, not misinterpret, since they don't necessarily have the professional vocabulary of what these things mean. I don't know if that's viable or not, but just an idea.
Yeah, let's go Devon and then Aaron.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know Ashley Espinosa has been doing a ton of videos on digital things. Does she have one on like a successful self-tape? Because that could be an easy resource to just kind of shoot to students like, hey, this is a great 5-minute video on how to set up a self-tape.
I'm going to tell you this right now. If you don't have it, tell me, because I don't want any money. I'm not doing this to solicit anything because I don't advertise. It's not my career. But if you don't have that, I would be happy to put it together and you tell me if it works or not, and we can adjust it and play with it so that it's actually tailored for these kinds of auditions. I'm just throwing that out there.
Totally. Hey, Aaron.
Yeah, Ted, I just wanted to offer, if I can be of use, I have some of those videos because I'm also a professional audition coach, and I have a number of people that I could use as examples. So I'll message you my email address and we can chat offline.
That's fantastic. Billy had put a really good question in the chat. How does the group feel about anything that maybe enhances the video or the sound of a person auditioning? How do you all feel about that? Maybe somebody recording into a microphone and then matching that with their video, that type of thing.
I will just pop in to say, you know, I think this year is going to look differently, but just even the few that we had last year, and maybe it's because we knew it was a last minute pivot, so you sort of give that forgiveness to, and maybe that'll change this year, I don't know. But I actually, and my colleagues that you know, that we work together in recruiting, I actually was in some ways less drawn to the ones that seemed overproduced. Because it seemed then like there was something in between me seeing the raw wherever this student is. And so sometimes the ones where they were filming in their bedroom at a weird angle and you saw some moment of truth they had were way more captivating than like the best lighting and the best this and the best this. And there's examples from both sides of the fence where I'm sure we may have missed a student that we would have seen differently in person or vice versa. But I think to me and to what we're looking for, there was still so much of the student, even when it didn't look well produced, you know? So I think we've been trying to communicate that don't let that be a barrier to still filming yourself and putting it there, you know? And, but it's hard. So I don't know the right answer, but I know we were still able to see a lot of really great talent, even in what would be considered underproduced videos.
I agree. I feel like when we last semester, when it was like COVID craziness, I teach dance, and I would have kids put combos on tape and send them to me, and that was their, you know, their class or whatever, part of it. Anyway, but sometimes for like big leaps in my more advanced classes, I skipped it all together in intro level, but for more advanced classes, I would give big leaps, and I would say to them, look, go outside and do this in your yard. It's okay to have the shoes on. You need the space. Just have like, you know, do it from far away and it's fine. And you could tell like there was this like freedom to it. Like you could tell they felt a little silly, maybe like leaving around in their yard, but at the same time, you felt like they weren't like in a space where they're like, okay, I'm trying to do this dance and fit in the space and look good on camera. Cause for some reason they care so much. I don't know why, like I had to have a rule, like you have to have your camera on. I don't care what you look like on your Zoom. Like, I don't care what your hair looks like, but like, but it was lovely. It was that same thing where it was like, it was less produced because it was sort of like the backyard, but it was also like, you got to see their joy a little bit, you know, and they all danced better because it was like, they didn't care so much. So I can totally see how that would happen. For dance this year for at Ball State, I know what we're working on is having combinations that the students have to tape, and we're doing like a split screen. I don't know how Christy, she's our head of our dance and she's a genius, but like basically like half of the screen of the tape is like the teacher doing it from the front, and then we've recruited students to do it from the back, and they can tape. I think we want them to do it from the front, obviously, but and then they have to put a combination on tape. That's how we're handling our dance anyway. And I think singing is like live Zoom singing, and I don't even, I shudder to think what that's like. But anyway, that's
Devon, what about you?
Yeah, I think it doesn't hurt. I'm thinking back to when I did my MFA audition, and kind of what I'm doing with my students now, because I'm working with my students in private vocal coachings in addition to what I see them in class. And you know, they all, because our music department is great, and I, you know, made a connection with the music professor who lent me microphones that the music department uses. My students now all have little like USB vocal condenser mics that just like it has a clip and you can pop it right on top of your computer. And when it comes to vocal auditions, I think the generation coming up behind us is savvy enough that if you point them in the right direction and say, hey, a higher quality mic, like a higher quality mic lets us hear your voice better. And it can still be, you know, a live filmed performance, but to have that higher vocal quality, I think makes a difference when you're looking at student auditions. And I think that's something they're absolutely capable of handling, like the technology surrounding it.
I think you are 100% right on with that. Like if you just tell these students where to buy it on Amazon, like they will go and get it and they will use it, and it's great. Erin, I loved your question in the chat about having limited financial resources. What are the best places that you have found to recruit students from?
Well, actually, it's actually the opposite, because there's this year, there's, you know, usually there you have to pay for the plane flights and you have to pay for the hotels. And this year, my department is saying, well, there's no barriers, so go to as many as you want. And I'm like, well, there's like, it feels like there's hundreds, right? So I would love any guidelines of like which are the ones that are going to be most valuable to go to.
Yeah, let's go Stacy and then Amy.
I'm a big fan of college audition project. The University of Alabama has been with them since their inception. We started because they're in Atlanta. Oh, sorry. Wait, can you hear me?
It got distorted on my thing. Could you repeat the name of that again, please?
Yes, it's the College Audition Project, and it's CAP. And it takes place when it's in person. It takes place in outside of Atlanta. And so that, of course, is one reason we were drawn to it. Dave Clemens is part of that, and Pat Valeroy, who is the mother of two of our former students, which is how I immediately got locked in. At the beginning, it was small, and now over the past few years, it's grown, and I've seen it's like kind of like a mini SETC in terms of we all get to see each other. And I just think that the students that we see there are top notch, and I don't necessarily mean like they're all polished and perfect, but they are talented. And you know, and I think they're using her this year virtually, but they've hired Deidre Goodwin to come in and teach the dance call, and she's just amazing and gets them hyped up, and it's just a very positive experience. And then the kids, and it's organized very, very well, and they are going above and beyond to make this virtual platform work this year. I'm sure there'll be some kinks to work out, but I actually asked Pat to join us tonight in case anybody had any questions. But if you're interested, I mean, you can Google it, and I'm happy to answer any other questions. But they're still taking schools who want to register for it. And I would say that if I had to go to one, that's where I would go. We don't do unifieds. It's just a bad time. We also can't get in. Like, I don't know if it's really hard to get into unifieds. We've done the sort of like nonifieds where we sort of crash in. We've done that before. You know, SETC is too late for us in terms of actual recruitment, but we go there to, you know, do exposure and recruitment of juniors, which we all know is kind of just put our faces out there. But yeah, I'm a big fan of CAP, but I know there's some other good ones out there as well.
Amy, did you have one in addition to CAP?
Sorry. Yeah, I actually, which it might be easier for me just to send you. I have a whole list. And because of Stacy's recommendation, I went to CAP for the first time last year and loved it. They're so organized. Their follow-up is incredible. Also, if you're looking to diversify your program, Booker T is fantastic, and you attend a showcase versus sitting in and looking at many auditions. And I have contact info for all of these because I'm attending all of these virtually this year. Another one that I love, it's International Thespian Festival. It's in the summer, so it's not a great time for everybody, but it's a huge event. They did a beautiful job. They were the first ones to do a virtual event this past June. It's always the third week in June. And we've recruited a bunch of students from them as well. Las Vegas Academy is another great resource for diversifying your programs. Really talented and academically strong students. So those are like my top three favorite. There's a couple others. There's a one in Kentucky, in Louisville. There's a combination of 3 different high schools that come together and have their students audition for schools. There's one in New Jersey that I've tried twice. Maybe some of you back on the East Coast have attended the New Jersey Thespian Festival. Has anybody attended those out of this group? They have really talented students, but they're one that encourages you to bring a workshop. I think I taught a dance class. But I find that their students don't show up for the callbacks. They're more there for the workshops. So I'm just curious if, but super talented students. But I'm happy to share this with you, Jessica, if you, and however
if you can
you
actually send that to Molly, then Molly can collate all of that. I love it. Michael McKelvey, did you have something?
Yeah, a lot of people, when they find their way to New Orleans, not the best time to visit us, they like to visit NOCA, which is our creative arts school. They don't really attend too many organized auditions, but the head of their program is a good friend of mine. He loves to communicate with all the heads of programs. So I'll just put his email in the chat if you'd like to communicate with him.
Yeah, Stacy.
I'd just like to plug the actual organization of MTEA right now, because this is just an example of the fact that I say this all the time to prospective students, that we're not in competition with each other, that if a student has the passion and the talent and the drive, there's the right program out there for everyone. And we all have something to offer, and there are programs that maybe are smaller that students don't know about that offer certain things. And so those of you who are new to MTEA, I hope you'll investigate us further and come to other things, because that really is what we're about, is supporting educators. And yes, we care about the students, but it is about a support group for each other. And, I've been on the phone with, Lara Teeter has called me from Webster and said, hey, such and such, she's not right for us, but she's interested in your program. Please make sure that you take a look at her, So again, it's not a competition. Just wanted to say that.
Totally. Also, I know we go to Moonifieds, by the way, if anybody is in this area, mostly because it is very local, and we love that at TCU. Moonifieds are run by Mary Ann Denard, the college audition coach. That's her brand. And they are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area every year. Yeah, Stacy.
And I don't want to start shit, but I just want to say, do you feel, I'm sorry, I'm just going to put it out there, but do you feel like that is more of a money-making opportunity more than, I know that, like CAP, obviously they have to make money in order to pay the people that run it and all of those things. Everybody's got to make some money. But do you feel that, because that's the reputation that I hear from Moonifieds, and I'm just honestly asking a question.
Totally. Erin, let's go with you.
Yeah, so we go to Moonifieds, and we loop it in with going to the North Texas conference and, get students that way. I don't have as long of a relationship with Moonifieds as my colleagues, and they speak very highly of it. Where I like Moonifieds, and yes, it is making money, but because of the size of institution we are, that we're not like the big one that can turn away all students. We're sort of, a competitive BFA program. But what I like about Moonifieds is they actually do help their students aim for the right school. And so we get a lot of students who, with their eyes dreaming big, may dream of those big schools. And I think they help gear them towards like, hey, you should look at a program like Viterbo. You should look at a program here. So we get students to us that might not know our name otherwise, and actually have a fair number of students in our program now from Moonifieds that, So on their side of it, in terms of the money making, I can't speak to it, but it feels like the students are well prepared. It feels like the students are actually given a lot of guidance for what they pay for, at least in the way we experience it. But I'm sure different schools experience it otherwise.
Thank you. And they're doing a virtual one this year as well?
Yeah.
I just haven't really looked into it in a long time, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And from the DFW perspective, if you can kind of bookend it with the North Texas auditions, it's two very different kinds of students. Like I went to the North Texas auditions when I was auditioning for my undergrad programs, and it's definitely anybody and everybody is going to be going to those North Texas auditions, where the Moonifieds, you have invested into a college audition coach. So you're getting two different kinds of students in the same trip, which can be helpful. Are there any other questions? I do want to maybe wrap it up here in the next little bit. Jacob, did you have a question?
I was just going to say about Moonifieds, my experience is I had to kind of work twice as hard to get the students from Moonified interested, because their eyes are on Carnegie Mellon. And then, I've got to work 3 times as hard to get them to sort of change their vision and maybe look at a school that's not Carnegie Mellon. So I'm just throwing that out there, that it felt to me like I had to put in a lot more work from Moonifieds. The kids were awesome. They're great, prepared. It was run really well, but just then the back end work seemed to be like twice as many emails, twice as many phone calls to the student. And so I'm just throwing that out there. That might be fine, but I found it to be more work.
Thank you for that. Any other last questions that you're dying to know about recruitment from all of our colleagues here? Yeah, Aaron.
Yeah, and it's okay if this is something that, if anybody has any ideas for me offline, I don't know if we want to spend time on this, but I've been very generously gifted 2 students from the university to be my assistants in recruitment, and I can't figure out what to do with them. Because I know that sounds crazy, but you know, I'm just like, I don't know what I should use you for, but I have you. So they're student workers. So if anybody has ideas for me, I would love to know what would be good things to that students can really take care of versus me in terms of recruitment, because I know there's issues with you know, what they're allowed to see and beyond accepted and stuff like that. So if anybody has any ideas there, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, Michael, did you have a response to that?
I was just going to say, when I was at Point Park, recruitment was one of my responsibilities, and I had 3 student assistants help me with various things. Database management was the best use of their time. So there are things that aren't confidential that they can help with that way, but that's how I used them. So. And also scouring Facebook to look for strange things that we should watch out for with the students. So.
We also use our students to be sometimes the first, like the first line of calling and answering prospective students' questions. So if they specifically ask to speak to a faculty member, obviously we answer those, but if they're really just calling with those kind of generalized questions that we know our students can answer, our admissions office actually has a dedicated music theater student who calls prospective students, and that's part of their work study job, and answers a bunch of those questions from the student perspective.
Yeah, Stacy.
I was just wondering if anybody else, I mean, you may be dealing with the same thing, but we can do, students can talk on the phone to prospective students. But right now we have so many rules, like with compliance, in terms of our students cannot be on a Zoom call with a prospective student unless there's a faculty member present. So there's a lot of rules and things that are not normal. And I'm personally meeting with prospective students either via Zoom or on the front steps of our theater building, socially distanced and masked, because there are still big university tours happening and there are students who still want to come to campus. So, but our students, our current students, aren't allowed to be a part of that. If they're walking by and they say hello and I can introduce them, then that's fine. And then I try to set up Zoom calls with prospective students. But again, a faculty member has to be there. So just be sure that you know those compliance rules. Because I'm just waiting to do something. I'm just waiting to mess up and do something illegal.
That's the stuff that I'm working on, that I feel boxed in by. So thank you for addressing that.
You're welcome.
Keith, did you have something?
Just something quickly, Aaron, our students update our high school teacher directory because they're frequently coming and going in high school Oz to find out who the new theater teacher is, the new musical theater specialist there. They also schedule our Zoom info sessions for us so we can zoom into an entire high school drama club and tell them about our program. And that's what I found to be the highest, best use of our student assistants.
I've also found, Jake, I'll come to you in just a second. I've just found a lot of success in transforming our student assistants into a social media team. And so they are running our Instagram live session with prospective students, and they're also running a Facebook live session for parents coming up. So that's been a really good use of basically using their skills that they already have in a really cool way and using it for recruitment. Jake.
Yeah, so Stacy, you're having in-person tours still is happening on your campus?
The university is, oh yeah. We're the University of Alabama, don't you know? Like we play football and we yell in each other's faces and we don't stop for anything. What?
Okay.
Yes, there are now. They were suspended for a while, but they started a couple of weeks ago. And you know, they're outside, and you can't go into buildings, and everyone's masked. And I mean, it is done safely. And I feel very safe actually in most of the things that I'm doing. But we are not allowed to take any prospective students into any of our buildings ourselves. It has to be like a actual, you know, student or university scheduled function. Tour. So, yeah.
Well, we are nearing the 8 o'clock hour. Oh, Ted, did you have something?
Yeah, on just dovetailing that the subject matter, would that, because everything is virtual this year, would your organization, I mean, I don't know how many, you're all different programs and have different things. I think the idea of like a virtual tour or a meeting with prospective, like I was going to ask you two questions. How many of you are open to have like counselors at schools? I've spoken to 3 of them already this past week, and they don't know. Some of these counselors they're trying to navigate everything through acceptance, through all the different schools, and they're really confused, and I'm trying to do my best. But how many of you are open to or have anything in place that counselors or the schools themselves, like the high schools, I'm saying, the up and coming, could contact you for, I guess you have numbers that say call us if you have questions, but is there any kind of way to organize which one of you might offer some kind of a virtual tour or an interview or a session with schools that they would know that they could join to ask their questions, get some information, so that, I don't know if that's even something viable or not, but I would think that might be a useful, I know if you had it, I'd probably be doing it myself and turning on a lot of the schools that I teach and help them direct their programs to it, so that, or is it more who seeks you out? You understand my question at all, if that would be feasible?
Amy,
I think it's seeking us out, right? I mean, if people seek me, like I said, I talk to counselors, but it's only if they've contacted me. I mean, we send out a big mailing to all the high school, like the local or the state high schools. But then if they reach out to me, and then we are actually working, there's a virtual tour through the university, and then we're working on our own departmental virtual tour, which is about a month behind. That's what we're doing.
Amy, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, through our enrollment management office, that happens live every year, where they invite a collection of high school counselors. So that would, I mean, for us, that, you know, the enrollment management office, admissions office are the people to contact. But we're doing it virtually, and they're scheduling it in small groups via Zoom this time, of course, because we are doing campus tours, but they're literally one-on-one. Like one family with an admissions counselor and perhaps a student aide. So they're very, very small. And then we usually have academic visits on Mondays and Fridays, and then different tiers of activity. Like they can make a choice to sit in on the class, or in this case, look in on the class, and or meet with a faculty member from their area of interest. So that happens 3 times a week, every week.
That's great. And again, if I can encourage anyone, I think that I've seen a lot of our students get excited about creating a virtual tour for our YouTube page. So if you want your students to have another thing on their plate, it has been really successful and something that they've been really excited about doing at TCU, at least. Amazing. So if you have any questions about MTEA in general, please reach out to Molly. Molly, do you want to plug that email address again? So she's going to put that there in the chat again. And I'm so excited to see everybody tonight. We hope that you'll join us for the next MTEA event coming up soon. And we will figure out how to post all of this coming up here soon so you can review it as well.
And our conference that's coming up in January, right, Jacob? Yay!
Yeah.
Mute fast enough. January 5th and 6th. Please sign up. It's shaping up to be a really exciting 2 days.
It's going to be a really fun time. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.